And with that, I want to go across to Mr. Tejawat. Mr. Tejawat, all of these statements Trump's made, I just pointed out a statement which was a complete contradiction to what he said earlier. What do you have to say?
Yes, absolutely right. There's a complete contradiction. The earlier the President Trump was claiming that the help is on the way. So stay Iranian people who is fighting against the regime. And now he's saying that he will send the whole Iran into the Stone Age. I suppose this is not supposed to made a statement by a president of a United States, a country like a United States who has a great history. There was the president like Abraham Lincoln and many other people who really did a great for not only for the United States but the rest of the world. And I suppose that somewhere President Trump is having an inferiority complex with President Obama. The reason behind it that earlier he wanted to get a Nobel Prize like Barack Obama, and a few years back when he made a statement against black people in the United States, and for the excuses, he went to President Barack Obama to meet him and given him a bouquet, and President Obama did take care of it. So basically, I believe that somehow the President Trump is willing to prove himself that he's capable enough, and he's capable enough to remain in a history as a good president. But now he's feeling that whatever he did in our last few years was not supposed to done by a U.S. president, and now he's trying to justify the whole killings, what he did in a pressure, or maybe the misconstructions, or maybe probably the misunderstanding about the whole scenario of West Asia. So that's why somehow he's trying to justify himself, and the whole speech was just a justification, nothing else. The people of the United States, they were expecting somewhat a concrete plan about the Middle East, normally what the US people we call it West Asia. So he the people were expecting him to show or present a concrete plan about the West Asia, but he did. In turn, he just wanted to say that what he did, and it was a kind of election campaigning. It was nothing more than that. Over to you, Vaishali.
Right. Major General Bansal, this of course is an important point that Mr. Tejawat is making about the fact that this is perhaps the run-up to the elections in the US, and the fact that he said, and I want your comments, Major General Bansal, on both these points. The fact that he said that regime change was never our motive, which is a contradiction, and the second point is that a straight, scathing warning to Iran. He says if there is no deal, we will hit their electric power plants. How do you see that unfolding? Because Iran is not going to back down.
Actually, from the very beginning, even before the war was started, the main aim of America and Israel was to change regime, and that was all rebellions over there that was going on, and they were supporting and they were saying all the time, okay, we are coming very soon, you be on the street and throw this regime. And they also, the America and Israel know it very well. So long this regime is there, they are not going to budge, and their programs and their mentality and their attitude and their supporting to proxy, the missile program and the nuclear program will never go away. Recently, there has been recently it was mentioned that the parliament of Iran there has been the questions, or the voice has been raised that we must be out of the NPT, non-proliferation treaty, and we must make a nuclear bomb. It is now has become absolutely on the other side, means what America and Israel were thinking to destroy their weapons, their nuclear weapons or nuclear capability, but they are saying we'll make the nuclear bomb. Openly they are saying, earlier they were not saying. So that is not being achieved until unless the regime is changed, this will not go. Maybe regime may collapse if the fighting continues. That is a different part altogether. But it was the main aim of America and Israel. And if this could have been done, other problem would have resolved automatically once the regime is changed. And any regime which is under the control or favored towards the America and Israel, they will not do whatever the Israel and America will say. So that was the first point. Secondly, as you said about this, I think the next point was about the state of Hormuz. The state of Hormuz has been created a lot of problems, and the whole world, 21% of oil has of the world is transported through that. The whole world is suffering because of that problem. Moreover, this Middle East countries, specifically, if you talk about the UAE, their tallest building has been targeted, the airport has been targeted. So this has created a kind of big chaos, and which is not going to end till the time this war is over. Now he said that if the deal is not finalized, then we will hit harder to Iran, and it will go into Stone Age. So this means the agenda is not finished. There is no question. How can he say that, yes, we have won the war? If you have won the war, why are you going to hit again for the next 2 to 3 weeks? So this is a contradictory statement. It is just for, as I told earlier also, this is for their own population to convince, and for their consumption, the people who are not that much aware about what is happening in the world, the local population, mostly they are busy in their own business. They are not like the media people or like the other expert in this particular field who was watching and who was tracking this particular war with all angles. So they just see whatever, they will just believe whatever the president is saying. The most of them will believe, some of them may not believe. So this was basically absolutely, as Arvind has said, that yes, it is for the basically for the campaign and for the purpose of election, which is going very soon going to be in America. So there's no doubt about it. Back to you, Rashad.
You know, Mr. Tejavan, there was another important point which we all really thought would be spoken about by Donald Trump, but that hasn't been addressed, which is that he was reportedly considering pulling the US out of the NATO, considering the fact that most of his allies have completely abandoned Donald Trump. What would you like to say on this point?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much true that almost more than half of the expenditures of the NATO was used to done by the United States, but still it was very fruitful operation for the United States, because actually somehow it was giving a kind of security to the United States. So basically, in the term of President Truman, he really put much efforts to make it more stronger. But I believe that if the NATO remains, then it's in a favor of United States, and that was the reason that even at that moment, when the President Putin wanted to be a part of NATO, the United States was not willing to make him, because the United States is willing to make a complete hold on it. But now, since he is, it would be suicidal for the American security, I believe, because in that case, actually, he will lose his direct approach to the Russia, to the Europe, and in turn, even he's losing his support. Even if we see in that particularly this West Asian war, then even no country of the Europe supported United States, and he wanted to means the European peoples made it very clear in terms of the Greenland, where the President Trump claimed on Greenland, and contrary he threat the Canada, and he said that Canada would be the 51st the 51st state of the United States. So I believe that it's suicidal for the American security, and what the President Trump is not a wise one, but of course he's willing to do it. Probably, I doubt that the U.S. economy is under a great pressure. That's why he's willing to. He's trying to find all the sources where he can get kind of financial support. He wanted to reduce the extra expenditures. So I believe that probably there is a reports that the U.S. economy is in a great debt and in a great pressure. So probably that's why the President Trump is willing to do so. Especially Jay.
Before I go to Major General Bansal, viewers, let me tell you about a statement. Let's go back in time and talk about this. Now, in an interview with the Telegraph newspaper, the president described NATO as a year-old defensive alliance as paper tiger. And when asked if he would reconsider the US membership in the bloc after the Iran conflict ends, Trump told the paper, and I quote, "Oh yes, I would say it's beyond reconsideration." He says, "I was never swayed by NATO. I always knew they were a paper tiger, and Putin knows that too, by the way." Major General Bansal, what would you like to say on this?
This is very interesting. If you see, of course, the America is the major partner in that. And if you see that most of the war of America, which was fought outside the Europe, maybe it was, say, last war was the Afghan war. Once America withdrew from Afghan, they never consulted the and this NATO members, and UK and France was not very happy. At that time itself, President Macron said that NATO is brain dead. Now, when there was a need for the NATO against Putin or this Russia, at that time also they never supported. This he was coming out of after this Democrat or after going of President Joe Biden was never supported. They never he was withdrawing. He was never supported. And now this time when he attacked Iran, he never consulted NATO. So once he not consulted NATO, how can he make it as a part? And this is not the fight of NATO. Or none of the country is involved in this. So like that, I think there is no proper planning and thinking about. And as far as the NATO is concerned, of course, being a major partner, major arms supplier, this was just a kind of psychological protection. Otherwise, I don't think the NATO countries, specifically European countries, were ever benefited by this particular this particular kind of coalition or NATO coalition, because there had been no major war between the Russia and the European countries. Of course, it was started with Ukraine, and Ukraine also, the America instigated this, that yes, you go for the war. And earlier they said they will support and later on withdrew. So this Ukraine has been just made a kind of a scapegoat. So I think as far as the NATO is concerned, this was, if this earlier there was a very good relation between Russia, France, Germany, they were getting the Nord 1, Nord 3 complete gas from there. So this was because of Ukraine war, the situation has arrived. I think there was no need, and NATO was basically for the protection of European countries from Russia. But the kind of threat now, perceived threat by the NATO countries, the European countries from Russia, US is not doing anything. So that's how can they believe America that the America will protect or America will come with them? This has been told. This has been made very clear that they were withdrawing at the time when, as soon as the Trump administration has took over, that they will withdraw from NATO, and all the more reason than America has made claims on Greenland. So at that time, how the NATO can believe? The NATO knew it very well. The many NATO countries, they went and requested. There was a meeting in Washington, and most of the countries went there, and they were convincing just to support Ukraine war. But still, there was no much benefit. So once you feel that, despite your request, and you don't expect anything from your partner, then this kind of situation arises. So NATO knows it very well that America is not going to support. They lost faith in America, and once that faith is lost, why should they come and unnecessarily? Because Iran has been threatening that in case the NATO country will come, then they will face the consequences. They will also be target on Iran hit list. So no benefit and much harm. So NATO has done the very wise thing that they did not participated in this particular war. So that everybody sees their own benefit and their own concern. Of course, Mark Rutte, who was the General Secretary of NATO, he once said President Trump as a daddy, or he praised him, but he also did not support this particular the coming of the NATO in this particular war. So NATO knows very well this, the people, they see their benefit and they cannot just enter without any benefit and for the loss, and that kind of confidence has been, or faith and confidence of the countries who had a kind of security from America, maybe even Middle East country, the way now if the America will withdraw from Middle East country and will leave them in this mess, they will also leave faith, and now they are making kind of coalition with Israel, the other countries, the Israel, and Ukraine is also coming to help Middle East countries for anti-drone technology. Similarly, if you take in even the Pacific Sea, this Taiwan and South Korea, Japan, whom they felt that they will be protected by America, but they're also trying to make their own coalition. And Japan is increasing its strength for the defense budget and defense capability and military capability. So America is losing slowly faith and confidence of the allies that it will not come to protect them at the time of need. So this is a kind of that means loss of faith to America and not good for America as a whole. Over to you, Vishal.
All right, I'll come back to both my guests, but